Rosie's on the homeowner's best friend.
Now, we have a lot of things in Arizona that other people might not have. When you see them, that your mind connects Christmas. Like when I see poinsettia, I'm like, Christmas. I don't think many people outside of Arizona or the Southwest connect poinsettias and Christmas together. Or do they have Christmas cactus?
In other parts of the world.
What?
Good question.
Let's talk about unique things, seasonal holiday plants, and start with the obvious, the Christmas tree. Do you have a strategy for keeping your Christmas tree hydrated?
Well, I guess the greenest Christmas tree that I see this time of year is plastic. So that's not the one we're talking about, obviously. But the next one that I find that looks the best and what is easiest to maintain is actually a burlapped Christmas tree. So it's actually a burlapped base tree. It's got the root ball and everything. And then that's one that you're going to end up planting out in your yard after Christmas. Now, if you haven't already gotten one, most of those are sold out. I think we've actually got a few left. We've got probably a handful left over at the Queen Creek Botanical Gardens. If you're looking for a live Christmas tree, like in a pot, and you want to plant that, we've got a couple. And those ones, that's one of my favorite ways. And they are so much easier to take care of because you barely even have to water it because they have the whole root ball. It's all still there. You just water the burlap a couple times a week, and it stays lush. Now, for the majority, you had a question?
Well, is that an Afghan pine? What variety of pine are we?
Yeah, an Afghan that's typically Afghan or a Mondale. So there's some sub-varieties of the Mondale that we like to get from Archer Farms. We actually get them out of New Mexico. And they kind of accidentally came upon this about 70 years ago. They had a seedling and it just turned into this very lush, very robust pine tree pretty early. Looks amazing for Christmas time. And so they propagate these like crazy now. And so that's where we get ours from, is from Archer Farms. They do a really good job. They make some beautiful pine trees that do great for Christmas, and they grow into some beautiful pine trees. We got a couple of them in the Queen Creek Botanical Garden, actually in the Japanese section. And they've always looked amazing. Have a great shape to them, handle the heat without any issues, and don't need much water. So we've always been pleased with those particular ones. But yeah, that's what we typically go with. But obviously that's not everybody. Not everybody's doing that. I mean, I remember doing that when I was a kid. Like we sold the potted Christmas trees at the golf course that I worked at when I was 9 years old. So we'd sell them from the golf course, and basically they'd buy the tree for like $30, and then the deal was they'd have to bring it back, and then we would plant it on the golf course. So it's kind of like it's a rent-a-tree kind of thing. And so, we'd sell 100 of those things, and then we ended up planting all of them it took us like months to then plant them into the golf course. Yeah. But a lot of those trees are still there today. I mean, that was back in the 80s, I think, when we planted those things, and they're still growing in that golf course today. There's a couple of the holes that still have a bunch of those huge trees now. I mean, it's amazing. But that's fun. So it's fun to have that heritage, but obviously not everybody's buying those trees. They're getting the ones that you're already cut. And there are some great tricks to keep those things alive. They should last 30 days for you, but they can last easily a month and a half if you treat them well. Now, some of the tricks on that, first thing is make sure that you got a good fresh cut. Like when you get it, have them freshly cut that end off right then and there. And I would recommend right after they do that to get some paper towels wet or something put around, or burlap, and get it right on that end on your travel home, because that could easily dry out and crack just in the journey home when it's sitting on top of your vehicle. But then when you get it home, making sure that you have it in a good basin, and that basin always has some water in it. Now, a lot of problems typically ensue. People start saying the water's starting to smell funny, the tree's starting to look a little weird. What usually is happening is that bacteria is starting to build up. Now, a couple ways against the bacteria is put a tablespoon or so of vinegar, like some white wine vinegar, into that water, and that'll help alleviate and kind of kill off some of the bacteria that's then growing to make that an issue.
That might keep my dogs from drinking it too.
It's like, why does the tree keep drying out? I keep filling it up. The dogs are drinking all the water. So another cool trick on that. I mean, my favorite recipe is a little bit of chelated iron that you can dissolve in the water, and a little bit of sugar or corn syrup even. You just kind of dissolve it into the water. So getting some of the carbohydrates in there that actually help help with the tree hold its color. So it's actually going to vibrate, make it a little bit more vibrant in terms of its color. To add a little bit of that. But the chelated iron is also one thing that helps it draw up some of that nutrient a little bit better. And that helps a lot. It also helps reduce a lot of what's going to be any bacteria that might grow. Because if the bacteria grows, it actually it basically clogs the capillary action to help the water draw up. And so that's why if your water's getting stinky underneath that pine tree, you've got a problem. Because if that's happening, then we know that it's also not drawing up any water into the rest of the tree. And it's so you're going to have to recut it. So I would retrim off about an inch, half an inch to an inch, trim that off again, and then reset the tree if you got stinky water. Because stinky water means bacteria. Bacteria is there. You got the capillary action is now decreased, and it's not going to be able to suck up the water.
And that chelated iron, you can get at any nursery garden center. You mentioned a bunch of local ones earlier.
Yep.
They all, and that's exactly what it says on the
Yep.
On the box, or it's usually a plastic container.
Yeah, and I know Miracle-Gro has a little, like a granular mix it's specifically for Christmas trees that you can use, and it has a lot of the same stuff that we're talking about. Now, one thing it's going to have in it that it's more synthetic, and so you might get a little bit of a neon green look to your tree. If you like that, I guess you can go with the Miracle-Gro. But from my experience, it's a little off-putting for me, and so I like a more natural route. I mean, even molasses. I mean, we've done molasses in the water, and that's rather than even using corn syrup, I like using molasses in a lot of my stuff. And what that does is it can, though, propagate a bit of beneficial bacteria that's not going to harm that tree. It's not going to be a stinky scenario, and it'll actually reduce any risk of any other stuff coming in. But corn syrup works just as well, even a little bit of sugar, no more than 2 tablespoons in about 8 cups of water. But that's kind of your recipe. You got like 2 tablespoons of chelated iron, and you got about 4 tablespoons of your sugar source, whatever you're going to be using on that, in about 8 cups of water. Warm it up a little bit, let it cool, and then put it in there. And then you can just keep adding more water to it so that your basin is good, and then there's your recipe.
It's like a concentrated tree sap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Kinda
you're trying to mimicking that.
Yeah, but we're gonna we're gonna make it a little bit more dilute, so it's gonna look like water. It'll have a little bit of a brownish hue to it, so you got it right, and it's gonna smell like dirt. It's gonna smell a little bit more like sweet dirt.
Rosie on the house, every Arizona homeowner's best friend.